So right now I got the crew neck on, which the like just the fabric and the feel is like really unlike anything I've ever put on before. And one of the things that I really love about it is how it really elongates my look and how it's like a much longer cut than normal. Because one of the challenges I find with clothing that I purchase is the fit is the right tightness, but then it's too short. And then there's like this disconnect. And I like a really kind of like chic, elongated look. And for me, like it actually makes me look a lot taller than I am on camera, which is great. And whenever like when I get that look right, when people meet me in person, but they have been like just watching me on online, they're like, "Wow, I thought you were so much taller than you really are." Um, which and so as I was saying off air, um, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago, Instagram decided to start showing me one golden thread, and I was like, okay, this is like really the style that I love, which in my own words, it's kind of like this spiritual hipster look that is like with a little bit of like GQ flair in there. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for. And on top of that, I've also been looking for well over a year for a company, a clothing company that is actually aligned with my values, my vision, and my mission. And then as I started to do more research into the company, found out that like these clothes are actually made from trees, which is incredibly awesome. And that not only is it made from trees and, really the top 1% cotton that's organically grown in California, where I'm from, um, there's also a regeneration project. So every tree makes approximately, I believe, 108 articles of clothing. And for every article purchased, there is a tree planted. So the return on the environmental investment is literally like 108x, which is like I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it because I'm plant-based, and one of the reasons I'm plant-based is because like I'm trying to lower my impact on the environment. I'm trying to do my part to really be a better steward of this sacred home that we have called Earth. So that's part one of the story. Then I started doing more research into who Jeff Scult was, and I was like, all right, this dude left literally. So you have to tell me. So word on the street is that you walked away from a multi-million dollar business that you co-founded and own 50% of to go do a spoken word world tour and tie golden threads on people's wrists, and that you've never done spoken word before this. Is that true, Jeff?
That's correct. Although I didn't know it was going to be a world tour. I just knew that I was starting in Berlin, and and the world opened up from there. It's a thank you for that recanting of exactly the way it went down, and for your listeners that are thinking about pivoting in their lives, that are thinking about that dream that keeps coming back. It's no longer a dream. It feels like it's a calling. There's real power in giving yourself permission to pivot. There's real power in giving yourself permission to do what you do, not to be good, but do what you do to be liberated and free. And for me, this was, for 51 years, I was like a UFC rear naked choking myself out artist in terms of expression. And I could no longer unsee what I was hearing in my mind. And so, and I had such a fear of expression. I had such a fear of self ridicule. Forget you ridiculing me. I had a fear of self ridicule. And so the concept of walking away from something that was safe to walk into something that wasn't even unknown, but walk it was so deeply entrenched in my fear cave, the concept of going and standing up in front of you and exposing, expressing, and being, I make up a lot of words, thank you, Mom, being raw authentic, like being the most raw, authentic version of myself, like just unleashing myself. And that's actually the way One Golden Thread started. It started because I came to realize is that we are all golden inside, including myself. And that was the message of the spoken word piece that I called my Humanifesto, that downloaded from the universe to me on the buffer day of the ayahuasca ceremony back in 2014. And I buried it for 2 years out of self ridicule, and then could no longer do that because I was unwell inside, unexpressed. And so, yes, I walked away from a company that I was misaligned with, at the time, my partner, and I learned one of the most valuable lessons in partnership that I will definitely share with your with your listeners. But that's the way One Golden Thread started. I went around the world. I had a satchel of golden threads like this. For anybody who's not on YouTube, it's a muslin, organic muslin bag of all these golden threads. And I did a spoken word piece, invited people into conversation, and asked the same 4 questions of every single person with a golden thread on their wrist. And that's what became the first distillation, the first expression of One Golden Thread, to remind them that the gold inside us is the thread that will unite us. And the original vision was to wrap the world with a golden thread. And who knew that it was going to ultimately transcend and be wrapping the world with golden threads?
I love that. So, just to give the audience a little bit more insight into who Jeff Scult is, he's the founder and creator of One Golden Thread, a regenerative sacred earthware fashion brand. He's also a speaker, writer, artist, and he's actually, like, as we speak, in the process of unleashing even more of his artistic self. So, Jeff, tell us, what was that company that you left? Like, what kind of business was it? And then start to walk us through the genesis story of One Golden Thread, and then also the genesis story of the reawakening or rebirth of you as an artist.
So I cut my teeth in advertising back in the 80s. I missed Mad Men by a few decades, so I wasn't quite Don Draper. I was, but we had fun, and I learned the value of telling stories of transcendent truth when I was in advertising, because I was focused on, like, really, diving into the minds and hearts. And then I became a serial entrepreneur because I likened being in advertising to being like a ship builder, not a shipbuilder, but a ship, like something that sails off to sea. And I wanted to be on the boat. I want to see where it's going, not just take it to the dock and ship it away. And so I became a serial entrepreneur and did 5 different ventures along my journey over 15 to 20 years. And each one was somebody else's vision. And then I came along as the revenue monkey or the story builder or what have you to amplify their vision. And it was everything from a better mousetrap to how to buy a home that became the largest real estate hub on the internet. And then of course it went all the way up and crashed down and during the dot bomb. And then I did other things around wellness. I did I was on uh, the the team that built the preeminent um, second home club in the world. This is pre Airbnb, and we built, a model of how the luxury, or how the affluent would share luxury homes, and and then the most recent one that was the story that you were mentioning was as a brand storyteller. I've always loved fashion. I loved clothing. I love the storytelling aspect around clothing, and so I was approached by somebody who used to do rock and roll tees, for tour merch, of how to do that in the branded space. And so we built the premier, preeminent, premium, um, branded wearables business for bands and brands. And so we did that, and it was great. I mean, I leveraged my entire network of all the people that I've, and I love the aspect around that clothing, weaves stories, and and I came also to know that clothing carried codes, you know, and so I would say that business was more transactional versus transcendent. And I also learned, as I said, a valuable lesson about partnership and what have you, and what's most important in partnership besides getting intoxicated by somebody's complementary skill sets, and really defining and aligning around complementary life sets, which is one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in business and partnership. But more importantly than whether we were, misaligned or not, was the fact that I was on my own personal journey. And I was on my own personal journey where my purpose was coming to the forefront. My purpose of life was unexpressed as I was certainly in this business, the business that we were in. And so along that journey, I realized that I was out of integrity, thoughts, words, and actions, right? A vertical man, vertical human. And so it was a series of contemplative and also chrysalis type, moments that, with a lot of dis-ease inside, that allowed me to obliterate the shell that I was harboring myself within, to, as a 51-year-old first timer, to do all the things, and to do it in such a way that I truly felt unleashed, because it was like the genie out of the bottle. There was no going back. And it's been, to say it's been a golden journey would be colloquially accurate, because it really has been like following the thread. The number of synchronicities that have occurred, the number of, as I like to call them, co-pilots that have showed themselves to, as a blessing, to take me from here to there. And as a first-time clothing designer, never designed anything before in my life, never, done any of these things. I've just been blessed to have been divinely guided, and also guided from inside, and then guided by the co-pilots along the way, that allowed me to, um, even when I made a misstep, to never have it be a misstep, have it be a course correction.
I want to dig a little bit deeper into this like Genesis story so I can understand. Explain to me kind of the significance and meaning behind the golden thread.
Best way to start there is a brief history of the universe of you, and you and you and you and me and we. Every one of us is born golden, right? We're born golden. We're born in a state of love. We're born in a state of lightness in our being. And then life teaches, preaches, and sometimes scolds us differently into teaching us to conform, teaching us that we are not worthy, teaching us that we are wrong. Do this, don't do this. And along that way, we re-gift our birthright of that golden right that's inside us to others. We gift it outside of ourselves, and we start to become less than instead of yes and. And so, and yet it's always there. That golden light, that goldenness is always inside us. And so, and look, this isn't like me saying, "Oh, what a great concept. Let's do a golden thread and let's build a business around it." This was my personal journey, which was, I saw everybody as golden growing up but myself. I was empathetic to everyone's journey as a people pleaser but myself. And so that manifests itself as I became an adult in ways that I continue to be empathetic. I continue to be a giver. I continue to see the gold that resides inside you. I continue to shine the spotlight on others. Truth is, if you would have given me a reflection about what you saw about me like you did a few minutes ago, I would have interrupted you in my previous version of self, and I would have flipped it back to you so fast you wouldn't even known you were sharing something about me, because I would have done it so deftly. And I would have done it in a way that you'd be like, wow, he just asked me the most amazing question about myself. And I was a ninja at that. I mean, come on. Tell me you can't relate on some level to this, listeners. I mean, is there any part of you? And if not, then nothing to see here, folks. You're golden, and you always were, and you always will be. End of story. Move on and go play in the grass. But for most of us, the human condition is scarcity. The human condition is fear. The human condition is um, is ego. And look, this isn't about, the thing is never the thing for me. It's always about it's our relationship to the thing. So ego is not bad, fear is not bad, love is not always good. It's what's our relationship to these things. But my relationship to all these things was crap up until, I'd say, 10 years ago. And I had my own reclamation project, my own story. And sometimes we need to be confronted by another to allow ourselves to confront ourselves. And I'll never forget, look, I mean, it was on a buffer day of I'll just share it. It was a wild journey. It was a 7-day ayahuasca, San Pedro, Iboga journey for those of you that, that are open to the plants. And in the Zion National Park, or outside of it, it was the most beautiful setting. And the individual, his name was Mark, was one of the facilitators. And we each had a moment with him midway through the journey to see where we were at in terms of letting go, surrendered. And he asked me a question, and I was so tightly, beautifully wound around this ability to deflect and ninja and move through. And I was so clever with my words. And he asked me whatever he asked me. And and he takes a pause and he stands up and he walks to the other side of this tent and he turns back around to me and he looks at me and he says, "Are you tired enough of being this version of yourself? Because I can tell you it looks exhausting. And I can tell you it's exhausting for the rest of us." And it was in that moment, it was like just, it's like this shell fractalized, this bubble burst. And by the way, I wasn't on plant medicine at the time. I was completely lucid, and I was just like, holy shit. Like, I allowed myself to see myself. I allowed myself to confront myself. And this is what I'm so honored to witness, the humanity that surrounds me, because so many, of these young humans are just have already, they're already there. They're already there in terms of letting go. But some of us, it takes a minute. Some of us never get there, and some of us just realize we've got it never figured out. It's all about figuring it out. But back to including my 91-year-old father, who's an absolute G, and he's right now in the middle of his third Saturn return. I've just entered my second Saturn return, and for those that don't know about that, it's basically like when the portal's about as wide open to your possibility, of all the things that you could receive in terms of the abundance in your life if you choose to be open. So back to the golden thread, the genesis of this is that the gold inside us, every one of us, is the thread that will unite us with ourselves, with our community, and with ourselves, with the planet. And following on the heels of the golden thread, I created a life philosophy all around this mystical, magical, badass number, the 108. which is the opposite of woo woo. This is actually elementally, astrologically, biologically, social aspect wise connected to all things and beings in the universe. I don't know how familiar you are with the 108, but I'll just give you like, I mean, literally, it's like a wiki that goes down like this. But before, this number just kept tapping me on the shoulder. It shows up in a powerful New Year's Eve in 2010, and it's room number 108. They hand me the keys, and then it happens, and 108 just kept showing up. And when I Googled it, it was the most stunning thing, which really represented my philosophy, which is like this interconnectedness of all things and beings in the universe. Thich Nhat Hanh is like one of my real inspirers, and he's the Buddhist monk that's written thousands of books, or not thousands, but it seems like infinite books. Um, and uh, and he also coined the order of interbeing, which represents this: everything weaves together, everything connects. And the number 108, back to that because it's important, and then we can pivot to continue, or we can complete to continue, is the 108. I mean, do you realize there's 108 moons, end on end on end, to get back to Earth? There's 108 pressure points in the human body, 108 sacred sites in India. There's 108 stitches in a baseball. So there's like this Fibonacci sequencing to the 108. I realized like there was the perfect expression of one golden thread. And if you look, for those that have seen the 108, that if you want anything infinite, or you want unity of community, when you start with yourself and never forget about yourself, everything moves. And then becomes two hearts. And then we come together. Each is the butterfly effect. So there's so much meaning before we even got to clothing. And then there's a whole story with how it wove to clothing. But there's a reason why there's a golden thread that weaves through every article of clothing. But go back to the golden thread. That's what this represents, is that we are all going back to our birthright. We are all going back to nature. We are nature. We are not apart from nature. We are a part of nature. And I'll leave you with this, because on this subject, I also believe that the greatest lie is the illusion of separation. And not separation between us as humans or political parties or whatever, but separation between nature and one as us. And when we see ourselves as part of the supernatural order, not only can we feel a greater sense of connectivity and belonging, of the gift of being here on this gift of earth, but we can feel a sense of camaraderie. And all of a sudden, when you go out to nature and you see the stars shining and smiling, and you see the trees dancing, you can move with it with greater equanimity in your life, instead of that nature's that thing out there. Instead, it's nature's that thing to revere. And the irony of all ironies is this was in my DNA, from the beginning of my birth. I was conceived on the banks of a river.
Yeah.
My Burning Man name is River. Also a coincidence, because it was bestowed upon me. My dad was a super naturalist. My mom, her art was all about nature and us as one. And I fucking forgot all this away. I pushed it all away and came back full circle and realized that this is part of my DNA, and it's part of all of our DNA. And that's why this clothing is made, as Paul Checks, who's a bioharmonist, he said, this is the first clothing that actually gives me life force energy like nature does. And, that's, it's a blessing to start something with values and intent, which is understanding the difference between, was that a project that I went on, or was I just on purpose? It wasn't a project. It was being on purpose. And that's when a dream that keeps coming back is no longer a dream, it's a calling. A project has goals, and it has arguably, an agenda. Um, a purpose is values and intent.
Yeah. It's almost like pursuing the ever receding horizon. Like the more you try to get to it, the more it continues to move in
I
front of
mean,
you, and your path continues to unfold.
the level to which what you just said is it is blowing my mind because and I'll send you this and you can comment on it maybe on your show notes or what have you because when I was invited to go on the Schusterman storyteller's trip to Israel that is like a bridge about understanding how the most troublesome area of the world we can actually come together. And so it's how do we tell the stories of togetherness as opposed to separateness. And one of the opportunities on that was to sit with a channel and to share what our vision was for what we were putting in the world. And at the end of the trip there were 44 people on the bus going all over Israel, and 44 people received their piece of art from the artists who depicted, took what you said, put it down on paper, however they did it. Everybody received their art but me. And they said, well, yours was a little more, how did she say it? Yours was more layered and textured. And so the artist wants some more time with it. And I forgot about it because some time had passed. And 3 months later, I get an email that says your vision is prepared. And what came back to me when I opened that was a jaw that dropped and tears that came down my cheeks. Because it's a wild thing to be really heard and understood. And it's another thing to see somebody's articulation, visualization of that in a way that you couldn't even imagine its beauty. And that's what occurred. And it was a horizon, infinite horizon. With there was an ankh, there was a flower of life, there was a Salvador Dali uh, cascading infinite ocean coming down, and it was extraordinary into a golden hour sunset over the ocean digitally. What?
All the, you're sort of tripping me out because I used to wear an onk, and I'm also like I'm very big fan of Salvador Dali. Of
Are you ready?
actually, when I lived in Barcelona, I went to his museum and everything. Is this? Are you about to? Yeah, let me see it.
Now it's my screensaver, so I'm kind of in the way.
Oh wow,
Maybe I'm not.
I love it. No, it's perfect. It's stunningly beautiful. Yeah. So, and the let's see, how do I say this without saying like it's sounding too crazy. So in the last few minutes I've had two different times where like goosebumps just like went over my entire body as you're speaking, and I'm unsure if that's just because like we were destined to like connect at some point. um and there's something in me that recognizes something in you that feels like self, if that makes sense. And I'm just having a really profound sense of connection, and I really I'm stoked to hear your journey because, especially because the age at which kind of your uh, breaking out of the chrysalis began to happen, at age 51, because I think a lot of people, myself included, um, you know, at times feel like, oh, I'm like, it's too late. I missed the boat. I'm not going to become the person that I secretly dream of, that I won't even admit to myself that I want to be. And to see that over really the last 7 or 8 years, you're really just like coming into your full power of self, is really awesome, and I just feel like I've caught you at a really perfect time that you're getting like more and more powerful, and more expressed. And recognizing the artist, the like the true creator in you that is like manifesting and coming out at higher and higher levels is really um both fascinating and intriguing um for me, because I feel like for in my own journey, I'm just now stepping into my power at 41. Um and really at 40 is when it started, and over the last year I feel like I'm like really finally just stepping into it. So one of the kind of questions I want to ask you is like, how does somebody return to their raw authentic self, or what are some like ways in which they can at least attempt to reconnect to that part of themselves?
But I think that the most important thing is this, the last part of what you said, which is reconnect, meaning um, it's already inside you, and see it as being something that is your inner child that's ready to come out, and to go reclaim your inner child, and realize like your inner child's like been patiently waiting to play. And your inner child, by the way, can show up in a remarkably adult way. So this isn't about your inner child being goo goo gaga, um although if you're the goo goo dolls it probably work out fine. um um so what I would say regarding that is truly like play, rapid prototype, start where you are, let go of the pursuit of perfection, because you understand the pursuit of perfection is the paralysis of progress and purpose. The pursuit of perfection is the paralysis of pretty much everything, but certainly of process, progress, and purpose. So, a dear guide on my journey is a soul sister of mine, soul family. Her name is Just Magic, and she coined something that I could never unhear when I heard it, which is do what you do not to be good. Do what you do to be liberated and free. And I would say it slightly, I would nuance the last second part of it. Let me really receive this part of it. So do your podcast, do your art, do your this, do your that, not to be good. Share what you share to be liberated and free. You know, remember what I said earlier? And I'd never said this before, so thank you for whatever you said that inspired this. Like I I was not afraid anymore of your ridicule, but I was petrified of my self-ridicule. So the moment that I obliterated that, I could be a first-time clothing designer, because I'm just designing for me to be liberated and free. And I never had the self-ridicule talk in my mind's eye. It never came up. And then as I said, I had blessings along the journey. Why do we play small? Why do we play small? If I'm hogging the mic, like right now, I have the mic. Do you know in my previous life why I was so afraid of this? Having a conversation with you like this? Because if I was talking to you, that meant that I was being selfish, narcissistic, and egoic, because I'm hogging the mic. So I will share with you the 33 words that I shared with you some of the words that were really powerful, but there was, still I was afraid to share this spoken word piece that I went around the world and did a world tour. And by the way, it wasn't like I didn't have flyers. I just followed the thread. I just got invited to communities. Sometimes I do it to two people. A couple times I did it to hundreds. But it was just, let's not let's not get over our skis. It was not a world tour. It wasn't like a Adam in Q or Adam Roa. But hey, look, I'm here for it. Now, but the second time that I shared my humanifesto, which is what I call it, right? My life 2.0 letter to myself. I got to tell you the circumstances because you got to visualize this. I was living in New York at the time. I was bi-coastal between New York and San Francisco, and somehow I got connected to an absolute rock and roll icon, Danny Clinch, who is the preeminent rock and roll photographer. His images are beloved, and he is beloved as an artist and as a photographer, and also as a they call it the harp, but it's a harmonica, and what have you. And he invited me to his grand opening at Milk Gallery in Chelsea, and it was literally like, this is March 2015, and everybody there is cool as fuck. I mean, it was literally like, how did I get invited to the cool kids party? I just got to New York and here I am walking and there's rock and roll stars. There's this, there's that. Everybody, even if you didn't know them, everybody looked like a rock and roll star. This dude turns towards me from the bar and he says, he, he says, "Hey, mate." And he's, by the way, that was South African. No, it was my South African accent. Not very good. And, and he asked me whatever he asked me, and then I said, "Well, what kind of beautiful magic are you up to in the world?" And he says, "Oh man, well, I've come from a dark place, but I'm actually igniting." And I said, "Did you just say igniting?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, this is crazy. I've never heard somebody use the word igniting in a sentence, in a conversation before at that point." And I said, "Look, I wrote this 3-part story to myself. It's like this piece that I've memorized, and it's a 3-part story of intention, integration, and ignition." He goes, "Oh, I'd like to hear it." And I said, "No, it's not. It's deep as fuck. It's raw as fuck, and it certainly isn't appropriate for a party." And so I literally was about to do what I did so well, which is be a escape artist. And so I was about to, like, because I still had not snapped past my worthiness issues, and he looks at me, he takes his glasses off and he leans into me, and all of a sudden this very affable, jovial dude is like, he goes, "No, I want to hear it, and I want to hear it now." And I realized I wasn't going to escape, and I fucked myself, and I backed into this corner, and I've got to share this thing that I'd only shared one other time to one other person. And I'm like, "Look, it's 4 minutes." He goes, "I want to hear it now. Like, don't, literally, you're wasting my time now." And so I just went into it and I shared it. And afterwards I'm sweating bullets, and um and I'm like, "Look, thanks for listening." And he's looking at me with like this blank stare, and I'm about to like do my escape artist thing, and he leans into me, he goes, "What are you going to do with this?" And I go, "Nothing." And he goes, "No, I asked you a question. What are you going to do with this? Not what have you." And I said, I actually said like the most unworthy thing one could say. I said, "Well, it's just my thoughts, and who am I to share? I'm just Jeff." And he looks at me, and in 33 words, he catapulted me into my journey. And what those 33 words were is, he said, "We're on this planet for 3 reasons: to learn, to love, and to share. And if you're not sharing your gifts, you're being selfish." And he poked me in the chest like that. And he said, "Quit being so fucking selfish." Poked me in the chest with 3 fingers, by the way. Who does that? 3 fingers. And in that moment, and he walked away. That was it. And I'm standing there, and in that moment, I felt like I literally got sent into some sort of a fractal black hole with a golden light at the end of it. I mean, I didn't, but that's kind of the illustratively of what was happening in my mind, because I'm like, wait a minute. I thought that if I'm sharing, I'm being selfish. narcissistic or egoic. And what he's saying is just the opposite. And in that moment, I drew back to what Just Magic said. I drew back to what he said, are you tired? And I was tired enough about being this version of myself. And it was exhausting to me. And was tiring for others. And that's when I became Jeff Scult.
I love that. Yeah, I keep thinking about this idea that I've learned recently, that instead of trying to be the best, be the only. Be the only Jeff Scult, the only Justin David Carl, the only whoever's listening to this. And like, I really hear what you're saying, because I think so many of us, men and women, are afraid to share our ideas and our thoughts and our words, um, both in fear of being judged by others, but like probably even more so in fear of being ridiculed by our very own self, or our small self.
Well, so back to your question, realize your inner child wants to share. Realize that in sharing, you're going to inspire another to share. And thirdly, and I'm going to quote, among my most inner circle of favorite human beings, he certainly is in the circle, and his name is Sendika. His artist name is The Firestarter. His last name is Street. And what he said is, your fans are waiting. So genuinely think about that with whatever you are as a listener, what you're thinking about putting in the world. Maybe your fans, those that love you, those that don't even know you, that they love you, um, they've been getting breadcrumbs, they've been getting little scraps, they've been getting little bites of you, and they're ready for a meal. And I loved when Sinika coined that. And it's so powerful to think about. Like, it's like we're just sitting here, your fans are waiting.
Just got to get over that perfection because it's getting in the way, right? Because how many of us tell ourselves, like, I'm not good enough yet to do the thing that I want to do, or it's too late, or what if it's not good enough? And what I really love about your journey, especially with you as an artist and a spoken word artist, is like you had never like you'd never even done like spoken word, and you just followed the golden thread and like started doing it in front of other people. And through that rawness, I can only imagine that you like refined yourself, right? And your art began to become more raw, authentic, and more in line, with your inner being, your inner child.
It's fun. It's
But
really
you had
it's really funny you bring that up, because I don't know if I've gotten any better at all. Like, I don't know if I've refined it. Maybe it's that I actually give zero fucks. Maybe it's that like maybe it's that's part of the definition. Like, have I gone now to a workshop about how to be a better stage presence? What do I do with my hand? What do I maybe that's part of authenticity. Maybe that's part of the definition. Um, nothing nothing does define the mind like a tightly defined deadline. And so maybe part of the thing is just give yourself a deadline, saying like, no, I'm just gonna do this now. That's why, like, on this podcast, I'm coming clean, and I'm gonna say that I will complete, to continue whatever the next thing is, but um I will complete. I'm just looking at this. I'm saying it, I'm declaring it.
you getting it.
I will complete to share my first book this year. I will. I am.
Hell, the writer is literally coming into full bloom as we speak.
Yes.
Love that declaration, and I'm going to hold you to it because I'm going to help hold that deadline in front of you so that you can fully define and get that piece of art out in the
I'll
world.
look forward to sending you a copy with a little, my handwriting sucks. I look like a sixth grade doctor on Adderall, but you know, I'll still take the time to write it.
I love it. So, what is that book about? Can you share, or is it
Absolutely.
not ready?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, the it's it's all the microdosed wisdoms that I've come across that have been um, channeled by a deep listening exercise, by being in the company of we, by being with myself in nature and what have you, but mostly by me listening to my own journey and having deep experiences that I've embodied about little things that will click track us back into living life golden. So it's, you know, what are the things for us to remember? What are the things for us to release? What are the things for us to reframe and reveal? Um, and for me, like the stuff that comes into my coherence is more like, at least it's my universal truth, but it's fascinating. Like there are things that I believe are just universal truths that that are little microdoses of the things along our journey that will remind us of the how tos. And you know, so it's something to take with you, it's something to share, and and it's not deep, you know. We can be practical while while being profoundly uh igniting.
I love that. So, I want to circle back a little bit to one golden thread um, because I think a lot of people are really unaware, kind of how destructive the world of fashion is. And one of the reasons I was so attracted to one golden thread is because you're through the work of the company and the mission of the company, you're taking like you're making a regenerative stand in a world or an industry that is destroying our planet. So I would really love for you to kind of illuminate myself and the audience about kind of like what the current state of that industry is, and then kind of maybe share a little bit more about kind of the mission behind one golden thread and how you think of doing business.
You know, it is truly a forgotten frontier. uh how polluting and plasticizing the fashion industry is, the fast fashion industry, um which is the lion's share of what's in the world. And you know, there's a race to the bottom on price, and we need to ask ourselves, well, it's not just about polluting of the planet, but it's also about pillaging of the people. You know, how do you think we got to a $10 shirt? What were the conditions with which it was made? Who made it? um, Children, women, almost like slave labor industries in third world countries. And as it relates to, you know, it's nearly 90+% of the clothes are made with synthetic fibers. So I'm just going to give you four statistics because it's, you know, a little education goes a long way. You know, there's nearly 80 billion new articles of clothes made every year. 87% of that 80 billion will wind up in a landfill or will be burned because that's what fashion big fashion does. They just burn it. And so, within 18 months of those, less or 90% of that 80 billion and 87% is made of synthetic fibers. And the calamity of what that's creating for our soils and our oceans and ultimately back to us is it's making the planet and us sick. 38% of the microplastics in the ocean come from the clothes that we not only toss, but also wash. Because 68,000 particles of microplastics, every time you wash that synthetic item, go into our waterways. There's a reason why the statisticians show that we're ingesting a credit card of plastic a week. That goes into our water systems. It goes into the fish. We eat the fish. There are studies that are showing that the microplastics break down in the ocean. It looks like little snowflakes in the ocean, and then it breaks down further through photosynthesis, and it rises with condensation. And so it is now raining around certain places around the world plastic. So it's only going to get fill in the blank, right? It's only going to get better, or it's only going to get worse. More humans, more abundance, more. I'm going to buy that item, I'm going to wear it once, and then I'm going to throw it away and what have you. And I've never told this story, but one of the missions that I went on with this organization back then called Journey was down to Colombia, and we built homes for humanity in the slums of Cartagena. And I don't know how I got so, I'm going to say now, fortunate instead of unlucky. But my site, where I had a team of 5, was digging through hundreds of years of almost like cement like dirt, and we were on a landfill. We were digging through a landfill to get to soil, or to get to dirt that that allowed us to put the stakes in, and what have you. And I was digging through this landfill, and there was heaps of clothes there that never properly disintegrate, because that's what synthetics will be there for thousands of years. It'll be particles, it'll be sheets of it. So this is what fashion is doing to our planet, and we just look at that little red number and we're like, cute, whatever, but we're not thinking about, and oh, it's on discount for $5, $10. What is the true cost of that lower price? So look, the calamity, the chaos, the congestion, to the planet is perverse, and to us with our humanity, look, our skin is our largest organ, and we treat it like a second class citizen. Forget about the sunscreens and not doing that or what have you, but also, you know, are are we putting clothes on our body that actually, ironically enough, metaphor, cosmic joke, insert here, that are closing us off from feeling? Or are we wearing clothes that somatically open us up to feeling? So, I share all this by way of a little education goes a long way. And so the conversation becomes, the problem is so perverse, I'm just going to ignore it. And so I'll just keep buying that thing on a discount. I won't even think about what the materials were. I won't ask myself the question, I wonder where this was made. Well, it was made in that country. Maybe that actually likely is in a sweatshop, not a love shop. I'm going to ignore all that. Or I'm going to think about this, but I'm going to do it from a place not of being a problemist. Because I'll be really honest with you, and I had some dark, motherfucking, paralyzing nights of my soul on this journey where nobody was listening before the pandemic. Nobody was buying this. Nobody was aware of one golden thread, and I was just, bootstrapping it and pouring more of my personal money. I'm not that guy. I'm this guy. And so it was a big deal. And was crying myself to sleep some nights, like nobody's listening and what have you. But part of the reason why was I was talking about the fact that we need to be regenerative. I was quoting all these numbers, and I'm sure that there's some of your listeners that are like either that have kind of tuned out a little bit right now. They're like, okay, the problem's so big. This is low vibration. I want to live a high vibration life. And I got to tell you, it took me going back 4 decades to learn the lesson that my dog taught me and my dad, to realize that I had my own language problem. And this was the lesson. And your listeners are going to fucking love this. So Sam had worms. And my dad, never missing a teaching moment, my dad's name is Mort, took me to Sam's bowl and he said, "Look, Jeff, Sam is sick. We need to give him a pill. How do you give a dog a pill? How do we give Sam a pill?" And I'm like, "Well, we'll hide it in his food, or we'll just give it to him." And my dad's like, "No, neither of those will work. If you give it to him, he'll see it and he'll spit. He won't eat it. If you hide in his food, he knows you're putting something past him, and he's going to feel something texturally that is off-putting, and what have you. And so he'll spit that out. But if we wrap it in something sweet, he'll swallow it all day long." And so it occurred to me, I'm like, we have a big pill to swallow in many industries, in many thoughts, many ways of being. And for this, all we need to do is say, look and feel as golden as you are. Go back to your golden self. Stand like a king. Feel this good in your clothes that's doing right by the planet in the process. And then it just becomes like a pivot party where it's just a better way to be. It's like, you don't need to tell me about the vegan cheese. Just tell me it fucking tastes delicious. And look how good it spreads and all the things. And then I want to eat that all day long. And maybe it was made, by people whistling instead of being, instead of another condition. And so I realized we pivoted, and look, we're here to share all the stats. But what if I just told you that you could do right by the planet by looking and feeling as good as you are? And you can do all that by doing nothing more. You can do right in the world, be right by industry, by doing by wearing what you love. And that's when the conversation pivoted. And then, quite honestly, there's a whole story around what happened during the pandemic, which is its own golden thread. But that's the most important thing, I think, for conscious business is the lesson is, and the takeaway is this: don't fall so deeply in love with your mission and your message that you lose your ability to listen and learn.
Yeah. And I love how accessible you make it for people to participate in the regeneration of this earth by looking good and feeling good. Like and that's why like I feel like I was destined to meet you, Jeff, is because I've always been, quote unquote, a bit of a fashionista. I've always been, one of the best dressed people in any kind of like, group of people that I've ever been around. And I just love to look and feel stylish. But I know that, I've always known that, like, at least I was too scared to look at the stats. So I like appreciate you sharing it. But I just know, even from like, whatever that Ben Stiller movie is, how like, evil fashion is. And Zoolander. Sorry, it's been a while. Just there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in that industry, and I've kind of just chosen to like turn a blind eye to it because like I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. Like most of the stuff that is like supposedly better for the earth, it doesn't look great. Like I don't want to wear it. I don't want to wear something that I don't feel confident and sexy in. And then, as I was kind of speaking at the top of the episode, thank you, Instagram, for knowing my style. So like some people rail against like AI and all this stuff, but me, I'm just like, hell yeah, it's getting to know me better. It's sending me more stuff that's more like aligned with my energy, my vision, my values, and my mission. And so I started following along in the company, and that's why I'm so passionate about, really empowering people to, build their wealth and create financial freedom, is because one of the easiest ways to change the world is by voting with your dollars. Um, right. So like you can, protest and be an activist and all that stuff, but like at the end of the day, you know what moves the mountains? The money. The money's always at the heart of everything. So if we can get the product or the business or, whatever it is aligned with the money, then the change happens and everyone's stoked to do it. The people who are on it for the business are stoked to do it. The consumers are stoked to do it. And so that's one of the reasons I just feel like a deep alignment with One Golden Thread, is because it's a beautiful story that is aligned kind of the power of voting with your dollars behind a mission that is critical to, the regeneration of this planet. So I'm really grateful for you, having the courage to go on this journey and like follow the golden thread, because, you know there are so many people who are stuck in some sort of situation where, they're in golden handcuffs. Like the money that they make is and the job that they work is comfortable, and it's hard for them to step out of it, and pursue something that is more meaningful to them. So you said earlier, like when you share your words or your thoughts or your creative expression, it empowers other people to do the same. And I just want to deeply thank you, Jeff, for sharing your story, because I know there are so many people who are 40, 50, or even older who are still, there's still that little ember. And it is my hope and my belief that like hearing your story will ignite that ember into a flame that can grow into like a full on creative flame within that person.
Or maybe the most powerful way for them to see that is that that ember that they see is literally like the tip of a bonfire, right? And the bonfire is just burning inside, and so all it is about expression. It's like a volcano. um I wish there's something else. You brought up something that has been one of the most gratifying, uh, heart just truly heartwarming every time part of this journey. And it started with this before there was clothing. I would see people on Instagram, or even back then, maybe it was as much Facebook, and they would post pictures of themselves with somebody they found in the world who was also wearing a golden thread on their wrist. And I was like sees like. And one of the things that has been, I mean, certainly not planned and almost indescribable in terms of how cool it is that I guess I'd say it this way. If you saw two people wearing Armani jackets, the same Armani jacket at a party, they would probably go the opposite direction. And if it's two women wearing the same dress, forget it. Probably one would, one would say like, honey, we gotta go. Like this is just too, that she's wearing the same. But what's happening is something that I never could have predicted, um, or intended, which is when people see each other wearing a duster or a tree shirt, they walk up to each other, they walk towards each other and say, one golden thread. And is becomes a setu. I don't know if you know that word, but it's a Sanskrit word for like a benevolent bridge to meet on, where it's like I see you, you know, and it's like the codes, you know, the clothes carry codes, and the codes are like this self-selection process. Like I haven't seen too many assholes walking around wearing one golden thread. It's like this self-selection process. I've invested, you know, in something that allows me to look and feel as good as I am, to shine my inner gold. And I'll share this, is that the only way to say this, and I'm not intending to be poetic, but this will just kind of get to the point like a clear-cut butcher faster. These are not look at me clothes. They're more like see right to me clothes. Because it's more about like the clothes have a simplicity to them, almost like a Japanese, which is one of my if Japan was a human, it would be like my deep reverence in terms of honoring a human, but it's a philosophy of living. It's wabi sabi. It's, you know, it's the thread, the stitching on the outside and the golden thread cascading through it, and a simplicity where the threads, the clothes become a frame to you being the art, as opposed to some clothes that I purchased before where the clothes were the art, the clothes were the expression. And it's different. It's like, no, you're the expression, and the clothes simply are there to frame you, to stand tall. And the thing that I'll just say, which is an honoring as well, which is if you and me and she and he and we, and because everything's unisexy, we're all in the room wearing one golden thread. You would look like you, I would look like me, she would look like she, and he would look like he. And that's, and maybe there's other clothes out there that do that as well. I'm sure there are, but I can tell you that's what's occurring with one golden thread. And that's also a blessing. And the other thing which I'm honored by, which I wanted to design clothes for me that I just saw as clothes that I could take on my journey for life. I'm a 10-time burner. Like, and I'm not talking about Burning Man, but like these shorts that I'm wearing now have five, actually six pockets. And there's an asymmetrical military grade zipper, and then a pocket side pocket, then pocket over here with a side flap, and then a side holster pocket. Actually, there's one, two, three, four, five, yeah, six pockets, and then a side holster pocket for my phone to keep it away from my family jewels. So I want to like design clothes that are like functional, that are stylish, and that have feeling, and with regenerosity that weaves within it all. So, you know, we were honored that we were just rated the world's number one best travel clothes by one of the top travel blogs out there, and they did that painstakingly because they saw the functionality, they saw the fashion, that you can roll off the plane, go to a sound bath or yoga, then you could go out to dinner, and then you can go lounge around the house. It's like clothes you could dress up in from the beach to the streets to the sheets and back again.
Yeah. And that's another thing I've been looking for in my own journey is because like I like to like I could literally the cool thing, you know, I'm wearing the crew neck right now. I could like take this off and then like suddenly I have a totally different look, but I could also go hit the gym in this, or I could go plop down on the couch and read a book, or I could like, you know, literally wear this or go out to dinner or a nice lunch. I could go jump into a photo shoot and look like super stylish. And again, like I really like the idea that it is framing me as the piece of
Yeah,
art instead of like it's the piece of art. It's a you know, and and I love that because like I like to work out a lot and being able to like wear clothes that are both comfortable, fitting, and stylish as fuck is like really important to me. And it's been so hard for me to piece together like my desired gym wear style because it's
yeah,
and that's like another reason I've been very attracted to the company is because it allows me to be the athlete. It allows me to be the GQ person. It allows me to be the spiritual hipster. It allows me to be like the Zen, like let's meditate or read a book, chill. And it allows me to like move through the different facets of myself
Yeah,
like seamlessly without having to like
yeah, and
wardrobe
it's been
change.
and it's cool to see that the ninth the I think he's the I don't know if he's the seventh or the ninth, but the ninth Avengers, of the Avengers, the Marvel series rocks this. His name is Peter Crone.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and so Peter Crone is a part of my journey. Yeah, so a question for you about Peter is he wearing one golden thread on some of the pictures on his website?
I
Cuz I
haven't
feel
seen
like
his
he's wearing
website.
the I feel like he's wearing the Kairos duster. And so, I was introduced to Peter's work through a mutual friend, and Peter really played a big part in kind of my like finally coming out of my shell at 40. And like I've been a fan of his um his work, his style, etc. And it's just crazy. Like I didn't realize at the time that I reached out to you that Peter Crone was actually rocking your clothing, but I'm almost positive some of the photos that I've seen Peter of where I'm like, oh, I love that style. I'm almost positive they're one golden thread.
I mean, Peter is when I first met Peter, he reached out to me because he saw some of the clothes I was creating, and it was I mean, he literally was like a spirit animal for in the world, elongating clothes that really match the silhouette of somebody who stands tall and what have you, regardless of whether you are tall like Peter or like myself, who's 5'11" or 5'10" and a half, whatever it is. And so so yeah, I don't know what exactly what brought Peter into consciousness, but you whatever we were talking about felt very superhero like. And if there's an individual that could join the Avengers as being the body mind coach of the Avengers, I would sign him up. And the iron of all ironies, a new friend of mine is the ex studio head of Marvel, who's now who's moved on to something new. But David Mizell would be would that'd be a fun thing for David to play with, is a whether there's a new superhero amongst us, and its superpower is actually about going within.
I just came upon David Mizell's work. I listened to like a really in depth interview with him, and I'm just like, as like many men, I was like hardcore into comics as a kid and Marvel and all that stuff. So to hear the story about how you know uh, Marvel Studios was born, through kind of the this man's effort was like really awesome. So in good company here. So
If
uh, yeah,
the cast that he just did with David, it was epic. And if you have not heard that one, I would encourage your listeners to dance over there if you want to get a. You can't even write that shit story of how a studio is formed.
yeah. I'll leave a link to it in the show notes. So um there's so much that we could cover, but I feel like we're getting to a place where we could start to land this ship a bit. And this won't be the only time that you're on the show, because I already want you back on in the future, because I feel like you're literally just getting started. When your book comes out, I'm going to have you on the show. We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about the additional creative unfolding of your artist self. But one of the things I really like to ask as a leave behind for the audience is, or an actionable insight that is really tangible, is one tip, tool, or strategy for fitness, one for money, and one for life.
sometimes I think, well, we'll start with fitness. I assume we'll do this in sequential order. So the tip for fitness is, and I'll share this by way of a colloquial story. My fearless 91-year-old father has one fear, and it's a fear of falling. And so, look, we're so focused on like getting in the gym and fitness, and it's like, all right, let's work our biceps, let's work the this and the that. But work into fitness, whether it's whether it's Tai Chi, whether it's Qigong, whether it's something that's really, whether it's just yoga, not just, whether it's yoga, but the things that really sacrally connect us to our core, because our core is our equilibrium and what have you. And fast forward to, you know, to having a visual of whatever age you are to being Fred Astaire. That's what the visual would be. And Fred Astaire, he wasn't the biggest guy, he wasn't this and that, but that dude could sing in the rain. That dude could like pop up and down the stairs and what have you. And like, because that's really what like I'm taking my dad with my sister and nephew. We're taking him for his 91st birthday back to Portugal, which is where I am now, next month. And I mean, we're gonna get after it. We're gonna go do what we're gonna do. But I know in his mind's eye, it's like that's gonna be in his mind's eye, which is that thing of falling. So I would just say the fitness, sure, do all the things that when you look in the mirror, you feel good. But let's do also those things that are the simples, the littlest, those muscles that really, with our posture, with our core and what have you. And look, I'm a hypocrite, because do I do those things with that level of veracity? But I'm speaking to myself right now, that I know that those are the things that at the end of the day, they're going to be most important to continue to do those things that you want to do. So that's what I would say about fitness. Um, Money, this is a good one. The problem with money is that we look at it as money. And there's ego in that. There's also scarcity in that. Do I have money? Do I not have money? Do I have enough of what I want? Do I want more? How much is enough? Do I have a number of what the money needs to be and what have you? And what happens when we look at money and we realize that it's not the me, it's not the end, it's a means to an end. And I looked up, actually, I took some time with this. And I actually looked it up. I'm like, well, what is actually the definition of money? What is the definition of energy? I mean, money is transactional. Money is a current medium of exchange in the form of coins and banknotes, coins and banknotes. Energy is our ability to do the work. So I started thinking about this notion around like what happens, what transcends in our minds when we reframe the game, and it doesn't create a powerful mindset shift where money is a transactional force. Yes, it is. But energy is a transcendent power that goes beyond financial exchanges. There's transcendence in that. Um, and, while money, yes, it facilitates transactions and practical exchanges, energy holds the capacity for transformation to go beyond the confines of those financial transactions. So, for instance, like even in our investor deck, because we're doing a Series A raise right now, successfully, and I say we don't want your money. We are receiving and inviting the energy behind that that's lining up with our values and our intent. And so I asked AI. So I did this an hour ago before we got on. I asked AI. I said, "What happens in the world when the world sees energy as a transcendent power of a way to view money?" And this is what came back. When the world starts perceiving energy as a transcendent power and adopts it as a lens to view money, a profound shift occurs, leading to a paradigm where money is not just a transactional force, but a conduit for transformation, personal growth, and yes, a positive change on a global scale. So what I took from that is like we each can become, business can become, communities can become, it becomes a collective force for social good, as opposed to something which feels transactional. I'm complete with.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So, two comments. One, I'm going to comment on your fitness one, and then I'll comment on the money before we move over to life. So, for Father's Day, I sent my dad a foam roller with the specific intention that in order, and my father's in his early 80s now, with the secret. Well, I told him one of the why I wanted him to do it is not only is like foam rolling like self massage, but it will force him to get on the ground and then get up. And literally, that is like one of the reasons that, like, you said your father is like super scared of falling, right? And you know the inability to get back up as you age has like a huge plays a huge role on our lifespan. So so I just had to mention that. And then I truly am in alignment with you that money truly it is life energy, and it can be treated transactionally or it can be treated transformationally, and it's your choice. And I would say by default, probably 98%, 99 percent of people treat it transactionally instead of like seeing it in the sense that is like a transformational energy that can be utilized for so much good, in addition to accumulated in really healthy and positive ways if you're aligned with that energy. So
Yes.
absolutely love it. Let's jump over to life.
I mean, there's so much here, but I'm gonna just go into one. I'm just gonna go into, two tips, which is how do we view our life? Like, what is the our meaning of life, right? And I'm gonna quote my father, you know, where so many of us, including myself, were seeking happiness. The meaning of life is happiness. And the meaning of life is fulfillment that comes from genuineness, right? And so we could actually just shift and pivot, even like, why am I waking up today? And I'll just share with you, I do want you to see this, is this is my mother. This is a self-portrait of my mother. Here you see like nature and us as one.
Oh,
Can't see it now. Point being is that there's there's something powerful in here within that genuineness to live life with no regrets, with nothing left unsaid. And so when you take that last exhale, it will be one last exhale of inner peace, not that feeling of like I'm. And look, this is not like a concept. I'm going to share something with you so fucking raw, so fucking real, that circumstances created a container where the actual moment that my mother took her last breath, I was, I was alone in the room with her, and for those 5 hours that she was going through her final process. And I will share with you that it was one of the twisted gifts, I believe, of something that we are so fearful of, which is this mental illness construct called Alzheimer's. And she was deeply in that journey, and she had let it all go. There was nothing left to share. She was in a state of inner peace. And so when she took that last breath, and my hand was on her breath, on her chest, and holding her hand, it was the longest, most beautiful exhale of surrender. And so what this rolls up to me is what happens if we live life as if we're going to die in love and peace.
I love it. I have one more request from you. Will you share your spoken word with us? You don't have to if you don't want to, but
I, it's been moments, and I would be honored. Um, and by the way, like, there's there was another spoken word piece that I knew I think your listeners would really enjoy, and it was like, how, how do we actually say yes, fuck yes to life?
you can share
So,
whatever you feel
uh,
most called to share.
well, I mean, we went through the whole distillation of the manifesto that led to. Well, I will actually ask you, and you knowing your listeners, would you rather have kind of rip the band-aid off, uh, full throttle, or would you rather have something that feels more meditative and deep and introspectively reframing all the things that we hold so tight in terms of fear and ego and pain? Yes.
I say rip the band-aid off because I think a lot of people need to rip off the band-aid.
All right. As I blow my nose, which is super helpful as well. Hold on.
Just so the audience knows what's going. He's getting prepared right now. He's got his his hat on, standing in his power.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So think back to that moment, and maybe that moment is right here, right now, that you finally started to give zero fucks about anyone else's opinions of you, because that's the moment that you clear the decks for your infinite fucks, your transcendent truth. No more woo woo, no more gurus, because you are spirit full over spiritual, because the gold already resides inside you. Yes to life with no hesitation and reservations, to free dive into the unknown beyond your comfort zone expectations. Love your life without condition, embracing your unconditional love language of the universe, your intuition. It's your choice, and you've chosen to claim your golden voice. It's now time to share your gift with increased ignition. When in doubt, get out while embracing the beauty of magic and uncertainty along your journey. You've realized that we are all more liberated and free together than apart. Each moment is your choice point, and you choose to live from an open heart. And you keep your eyes all the blessings, because you've always remembered residing inside that deepest dark fear cave, just like Joseph Campbell said, shines your deepest soul lessons. And most importantly, you will never, ever forget that this is all supposed to be fun. Fuck yes. Let's have some.
Fuck yes. Hell yeah, brother. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. If the audience wants to connect with you, what is the best place to send them online?
That's where I got my personal webpage, which is jeffscult.com. That's jeffscult.com. You can connect with me on Instagram at jeffscult. And also I check One Golden Thread as well. You can go to at one golden thread excuse me, at one golden thread. And then if anybody wants any threads, gear up and love yourself up, and let me give you my personal founder code, which you can share with your friends, and that's Jeff11. Pick yourself up something delicious, and it's and know that every item sold plants a tree, and most importantly, try it. We're very confident that you're going to love it, because it's a no questions asked, money back guarantee. So, maybe I should say money back guarantee.
Awesome. Yeah, and your team already set me up with a code as well, so you can use Jeff11 or Dragon11. Um, and
Yes,
yeah, so either one. Like, I want to support Jeff. If you want to support support the show. Literally, we're Jeff and I are now teamed up on this mission together. So whatever feels best to you, Jeff. Any last words or requests to the audience or parting thoughts that you want to leave us with?
to use Dragon's code, because then we can go back after a year from now when I'm next on, or whenever the next time is, and we can say how many trees were planted in the name of the.
I love that. Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll definitely have you back when the book's out. Uh, when sometime are you completing it this year or publishing it this year? So I want to get clarity around this so I know what to hold you accountable to.
I don't know how long it's like. This is another thing which I'm literally like, beyond rookie. I don't know how long it actually takes to produce a book. Like
Mm.
actually, like design. I don't know what that process is like. I've never done that before. So I will the by 10/8, which is close enough to 108, October 8th. I will be. You can have me back on, and the book will be complete. And now it's time to publish it, whatever that looks like.
Awesome.
And
Yes.
maybe by 108, 2024, it's actually in the store.
Love that. Hell yeah. All right, brother. Well, so good to connect with you. So good to have you on the show, and we'll have you back in the near future, brother.
You're doing, and I'm happy you obliterated your own lies in disguise to do what you're doing, because this is part of your calling. You're very good at it, and your listeners are blessed to be on this journey with you. Keep going deeper in this, and yeah, and I like the way the threads are flowing for you. So uh, boy, and I'd love to hear from your listeners in terms of what landed for you, and anything along your journey that feels true. There's one other thing that I just launched. I just launched the web page of what the book's going to be.
Oh, not.
How did I forget
Come on.
how much of a rookie I am? So so the on Instagram, 108 108.dog,
Love it. So check out.
because what do you stands for?
I mean, I have no idea. I mean, I understand the spiritual meaning between 108, but and I know that your dog Sam was really important to you, but I'm not sure quite what
So
else.
the name.
Say that one more time because your audio didn't come through. Oh, for some
So
reason,
108.
it's probably the audio is probably coming through on your side, but I can't hear it right now.
Well, maybe I'm not into. Maybe it's just 108.dog. You'll figure it out when you get there.
That is super trippy. I wonder if like, yeah, there's something because now I can hear you perfectly. So I guess the audience members, if it doesn't come through on your side, they're just gonna have to go figure out what that means.
That's exactly it. Go figure it out what it means. Go to 108.dog at 108.dog on Instagram.
Hell yeah, brother. Thanks for coming on the show.